Back for another Shan'e Rib Shack, Westover Terrace, and basketball and focus night. Shane's, a lot going on in the basketball world as we close out the season. Another year is pretty much done, but a lot still to talk about. Let's go back with Joe Sirera for the news and record. Joe, when you walked out of that Carmichael Auditorium, walked out of Carmichael on Saturday night, you knew most of the high school season was over for you. What was the feeling like when most of that was behind you?
A little bit of a disappointment. You know, I enjoy basketball. I coached basketball years ago at the high school and college level, so that's kind of my season. Although I love the football too, but a really tough way for it to end for both Northwest Guilford and Northern Guilford, two teams that really did a great job all season. Northwest with a great group of seniors, unbeaten up to that point, and Northern that got on a roll, really grew up a very young team, and you know, both of them to come so close and come up short was just a tough way for it to end.
One team you expected to be there, the other was kind of a surprise to see them there that deep, and Northern getting that far. And over at the Dean Smith Center, we were getting scores, final scores like 55-50 or a 5-point game. Later, you read 53-50. That is Northern really playing them close.
They were down 14, 21-7 early in the second quarter. They committed 8 turnovers in the first quarter, only 6 the rest of the game. With 3 sophomore starters, 2 junior starters, it took them a while to settle in. Once they did, they realized they could play with that Morganton Freedom team that finished 32-0, and I think that experience is going to carry them the next 2 years. That's a team that could definitely win the 3A state title. Next year, they came awfully close this year.
And you think about it, they had some, like you say, early game jitters, but up at that point, surprisingly enough, they hadn't had too many jitters. I mean, I think a big game for them, all the games I was kind of following as we go along and looking back on some of the games. One game that stands out, though, beating that Terry Sanford team, that was a big win.
Yeah, scored the last 11 points of that game. I was down there at Fayetteville State for that one, and the main thing that carried them during their run was defense, and they shut Terry Sanford down for the last 6 minutes of that game, did not give up a point in the last 6 minutes. Their guard play improved throughout the year. Cassie Robakevich really grew into the point guard role. Mercedes Wampler became more of a factor, defensively especially, but also on the offensive end. Jumpers occasionally slashing to the basket. That team really kind of grew up before your eyes during the season.
And they got the big girl from Sanford in trouble too, didn't they?
Yes. Oma Udo. She is signed with Wake Forest, 6'1" center. Alyssa Kinane got 2 fouls on her in the first less than 3 minutes. She went to the bench for the rest of the first half. But when she came back in the second half, was not a factor at all.
Sometimes you go down and sit for a while and you come back, you're quite not the same. You're thinking about don't want to pick up that next foul. Also, you've been sitting around watching a while. You haven't got that rhythm back in. But it sounds like Kinane never lost her rhythm the entire time.
They don't get there, obviously, without her. A 6'5" player who has the athleticism, the timing, the skills that she does in girls high school basketball doesn't come along very often. And you know, the whole team got them there, but she was the changing and deciding factor for them.
And the strange thing is, earlier in the season, she was injured for a brief period of time, and that could have been a more serious injury. That could have really affected that team's outcome, like you say.
Had a plantar fascia injury. I can't remember if it was the right foot or left, but she missed 4 games. They went 2-2 while she was out. She got back for the HACO and didn't really look like she missed a step. Was a little winded the first couple games, but just a really solid, smart player. Already has multiple Power 5 Division I scholarship offers. Just going to be a great player to watch.
You think about the HACO. I think they finished 4th there, didn't they?
Yes.
That's what kind of what you finished 2nd in the state, but 4th in the HACO. That's kind of wild. How things improved and got better.
Such a young team, and I think I expected them to get off to a better start and be more of a factor early in the year. And I don't think I gave Sydney Wilson, who was the senior point guard last year and was on our first team All-Area team, enough credit for how good she was last year and what a steadying influence she was on the rest of that team. And I think, like a lot of people, including you'll talk to Kim Furlow later about it, but I think a lot of people forgot that was a team of so many sophomores and juniors, and it took them a while to grow into it. But they're ready now. They were so. The sophomores and juniors were so upbeat after that loss about we're going to be back here next year and it's going to be ours that I wouldn't bet against them.
So interested in how those guards came along during the year. I mean, they must have really come along a lot because that was going to be the difference in the team, the lack of the guard play from before. But I mean, eventually things came together. And Ruby Cabbage, her first game as a freshman, I remember you wrote about it at the News and Record and wrote about her and Canaan and Ruby Cabbage, a brand new name to us and all those type things. Had a ton of points first game. Thought she was going to be those kids who maybe be like a huge scorer, but she became more of a guard play, maybe a multifaceted guard this year. Had to do more than just score, and she picked it up pretty well.
Yeah, she was the shooting guard with Sydney Wilson last year, and they have two pretty good forwards too. Kelly Lomax, who's a junior, Sammy Furlow, Coach Furlow's daughter, who's a junior. It's a good balanced team. I mean, there's no question about that. Do they get that far without a dominant 6'5" center? No, but that is a very good basketball team, a well-coached basketball team, and they're only going to get better.
Lomax is a good, thinking player. I think she made like the all-academic team in the conference 3 times.
Yep.
Says a lot for her, and she just
Definitely.
works hard, plays hard. Like I said, and I think Kim Furlow, at the beginning of the year at least, she always kept like 9 players. So you look at her roster, you only got 9. She gets a lot out of that roster. Because Seaton off the bench, you got Skylar Schufert off the bench. Some names just kind of pop out from others.
The player who was the difference against Terry Sanford was Amaya Clayton.
Clayton, yeah.
She did not start the game. She started the second half, and she had so many deflections and challenged and the passing lane so much in the second half. She was a big factor in that game.
And I'd
Couldn't have
heard
gotten
very
her
little
back.
at all about her before the season. Saw she was a senior.
Yeah.
As time went on, she just wasn't a name on the roster. She was actually a name, like you say, contributing.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, she was a huge factor in that win over Terry Sanford.
It's a tough loss to Northwest Guilford. I don't want to dwell on it too much. And gosh, that's a tough way to close out your career because
Yeah.
you take that with you. Whenever you see each other in these reunions and get together again over the summers down the road, you'll think back to that last game. But I'll tell you what, you got there, you worked hard, just a tough loss.
Yeah, I was at Northwest yesterday to talk to a couple of people for a football story, and ran into Tony Tucker and Savannah Neese, who were in a strength and conditioning class out there with some of the football players and the other athletes, and they were still hurting a little bit, but they were both very upbeat about what they had accomplished in 4 years of high school basketball, and they have every reason to be proud. All that senior class is one of the best ones we've seen around here in a long time.
It was, and you look back at the Grimsley senior class, when they had 5 D1 prospects on their team. They all went to college, the 5 starters, but Northwest has 3 going to college. You mentioned Tucker. I think she'll do pretty well because I think she's going to go into some of that bodybuilding stuff too, isn't she?
Her dad is a competitive bodybuilder, really impressive guy, and she's interested in doing that too, along with playing basketball.
Interesting combination, the bodybuilding, the weightlifting, the basketball, but if it works, it makes her stronger, more power to her.
And I think what you see to an extent a little bit on the women's side with competitive bodybuilding, it's not necessarily about mass and bulk, it's about
The look.
tone and physique, and it's only going to help her at the college level to have that kind of strength and flexibility is obviously the most important part.
Tough loss for Northwest, but again, you look at the future, Northern Guilford, possibly next year, possibly Southwest Guilford, maybe either Southwest Guilford boys or the Northwest Guilford. We could have 3 teams there next year instead of 2. Very good possibility, and maybe a little bit of a letdown if we don't get 3 teams there next year.
Yeah, I think there's some big time potential there. There's so much young talent in Guilford County in the area this year. Northwest Guilford loses that great senior class. They have 2 pretty good freshmen. I think they're going to have to surround them over the next year or 2. Kayla King, the combo guard for them.
Well, she had a great playoff run. What she averaged about 15 points a game in the playoffs.
16 going into the championship game, and Liz Kitley, big center, daughter of Ralph Kitley, the principal.
She's just barely beginning to scratch the surface, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got all kinds of potential. Very strong, very smart player.
She's just got to become a little bit more mobile, spin around and move around the middle of that circle down to the basket, and she probably will. Probably won't be 2 girls standing side by side as much. Maybe her a little more spin in the middle, but her and Gibbs should be a very good presence down there next year.
Don't write them off for next season. That's still going to be a very good
A little
basketball
freshman
team.
from over Northwest Middle. Her last name is Carter, Thalia Carter, I think it is. That little girl can move. I told
a lot of
someone
good things about
she
her,
probably
yeah.
could have played a few minutes this past Saturday,
Yes.
helped out a little bit. But
Yes.
she probably can take that point if Coach Jordan wants to do it that way and have King at that 2 guard, because King can definitely get to the basket. She can get to the basket and score.
Yeah, she's got a knack for that, and just going to be a really good player to watch over the next 3 years.
That's Southwest Guilford's women's team. I don't think you lose anybody off that top group.
Lauren Carter, sophomore, LaShonda Monk's a junior. I mean, they really got their act together as the season went on. I saw them at home lose to Northwest badly at one point during the season, and Coach Nick Scarborough kind of had a meeting with them afterward and kind of cleared the air with them on some things. things, and they listened. They took everything he said to heart, didn't take it the wrong way, and made a great run in the regional final.
When they were number 18. They beat the number 2 seed. That's really got a lot of people's attention in that bracket. Yeah, it sure did.
I mean, it was a great run. I mean, it's overshadowed a little bit by Northwest and Northern, but that was a great run too.
Had a good start in that game against Northwest. Led Northwest 5-0 early in that game, and things changed from there. But good year all the way around. Talking about a run, I guess. We haven't seen the boys quite as dominant as the girls in recent years. Had a lot of women's teams there, though. Had the Northern and Northwest this year. We've had Dudley, we've had Grimsley, we've had Page, we've had Southwest, and the list goes on. Boys-wise, pretty much Dudley the recent years. I did write down that one part of
Page with the regional semis last year and lost to Ardrey Kell, and that was a very good Page team that Steven Santa Ana, who's now at Elon, was the big gun for Ardrey Kell, and he was just so tough in that game that they couldn't get to the regional final. But that was a very, very good basketball team at Page last year.
I saw the all-conference team today from the Metro 4A, and just kind of I look at all the different names, and I always look and kind of do a little mental evaluation. My mental evaluation on Page is kind of interesting. Only one all-conference member, and that's DeAndre Overton. So you think about how many they probably would have had if the guys would have stuck around. Would have been crazy.
Yeah, and I think Will Jones might have been on his way to all-conference, but football is his ticket. He got an offer today from East Tennessee State, Division I school, and I think he decided that he loves football. He likes basketball. He loves football, and that's where his future is. And he switched directions. I think if he had stayed, as I say, I think he might have been All-Area too. But DeAndre, obviously, great football talent.
And he's going to Clemson, so I guess he'll be focusing nothing but football from now on, I would think.
Yeah, he's not anyone who's expressed any interest in being a two-sport guy. There are a few around the area. Trey Turner at Northwest Guilford certainly has that ability. Hendon Hooker's even expressed an interest in possibly playing some college basketball, but only after he settled in for a year or two as a quarterback and got his feet under him that way.
That's a smart decision on his part.
He's a smart kid, comes from a great family, great program. He had a big visit to Notre Dame last weekend, which is probably the front runner for him, but also looking at Virginia Tech, NC State. I mean, he's going to have his pick of schools.
Back to Northern Guilford, you saw them the first part of the year, at the end of the year. What was the difference between the beginning and the end for Northern?
Guard play, without question. Cassie Robakevich moving from shooting guard to point guard. It just took her a long time to adjust to that role, and it is a difficult role. They played, if you look at Max Preps, they played the toughest 3A schedule in the state this year, strength of schedule, with all the good teams in Guilford County that they played and some outside the county, Eastern Alamance, Williams, Rockingham County, some of the people that they faced. And it just took her a while. She's a sophomore. It took her a while to settle into that role. For Wampler, who had been coming off the bench a little bit as a freshman, to settle into the shooting guard role. For the other two, Furlow and Lomax, to kind of get comfortable. It was a chemistry thing. When you're replacing a point guard who was as much of a leader and a take-charge lady as Sydney Wilson was the year before, it just took a while.
And with all those parts in place coming back next year, that's the difference next year too?
They're going to have to develop a bit of a bench, because they do lose Samaya Clayton, they do lose Laisha Seaton, but they've got some people there. That's a strong program. They're going to have some people incoming too.
Should be a lot of interest in that community right now. It should be building and building and building, you would think.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that Morganton Freedom's coach, Amber Reddick, said to Coach Furlow after that game was, you're going to be back here next year and you're going to be the one holding the trophy. And I think that's probably the way most people view it.
You look at the competition they played during the season. You mentioned the Eastern Alamance situation. I think Eastern beat them the first time maybe about 14, 54, 40.
Beat them the first two times.
Yeah, beat them the second time, but by the third time, I think Northern beat them by 18 and beat them in the conference tournament. And next thing you know,
took them apart in the regional final too.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that was the development of that team. They went on a 12-game run up to the state championship game. Yeah.
Yeah, one time you had Northern, they were chasing Eastern, they were chasing Rockingham, they were chasing Williams. Now those teams are actually going to be chasing Northern.
Rockingham County's got a very good young team too. A girl named Madeline Hardy, who's only a sophomore, 6'6" inside player who's very good. That's a good program. Woody Wall, a coach who's been up there for a long time, always has a strong team. They were in the regional final last year, regional semifinals this year. They're not going away, but Northern is definitely the team to beat.
Back to Southwest Gophers girls, if they don't get beyond the regional finals next year, is that a step backwards? Because you get that far this year, your plan of attack is, well, look, we got there this year. You're selling that to your girls. Next year, we've got to get that championship in region. We got to get to the state final.
Yeah, I think it probably would or will be viewed that way if they don't get that far. But 4A West is always going to be tough with the Charlotte Meck schools, with West Forsyth, with Reynolds, with schools in Winston-Salem. It's by far, I think, a tougher region overall than the East. In 4A, Millbrook won the title, and they've had a good run over there. But the depth in the West in 4A, I think, is so much greater. And to me, there wouldn't be any shame in not getting back there. But obviously, that's going to be their goal, to get at least that far.
Millbrook's got 3 of the past 5, and the other 2, Myers Park, I mean, they pretty much dominated the girls' 4A level the past 5 years.
Yeah, Myers Park, obviously, the team that knocked out Northwest last year by 20. I mean, that was a very, very, very good Myers Park team. And Northwest took care of them this year, but Myers Park had lost a number of Division I players off that team. And then there's just, Charlotte's a big metro area. There's a lot of talent down there, and the players in the Charlotte Meck area tend to gravitate towards certain schools regardless of where they live. I'll put it that way.
It was the time when Butler had it in their girls' rankings. They had a tough girls' team. That's back when Butler was coached by Coach Butler, and they had the young lady who went to Tennessee who was like the stepsister of the Hurd sisters over at Page back in those days. But like you say, there's no doubt about it at Mallard Creek right now. They definitely gravitate there for football. No doubt about that.
Got a pretty good girls basketball team too now.
They do, and they got a pretty good. Picked up that quarterback out of Hillside. He transferred in there, so that's going to help them as well.
Yeah, I won't say any more about that.
They were trying to get, well, we talked about that. I don't think we talk about it here, but they were trying to get at one time maybe Cam Newton's brother in there too. He talked about him pulling in there.
Well, Randy Moss's son was on the team this year.
And for 1 year, because he transferred from a private school in there. Yeah, and when it works like that, it's pretty much the means toward the end, and the end result worked out good for him.
They had a great team this year. They were well deserving of being the 4A champions.
Still say the best guy on that team, in my opinion, was that quarterback who I knew very little about going in. I mean, all the talk was about all the other guys, but that James Smith, which is a common, he could be walking down the street, there goes James, yeah, okay. But that guy, he was very impressive.
Yeah, a lot of times dual threat quarterbacks who aren't 6 feet tall get overlooked. They end up I'm not sure where he ended up. I knew he had offers from Charleston Southern and the Naval Academy. He would be a perfect kid for a school like the Naval Academy. Those kids get overlooked a lot of times, but they win football games. He's a winner.
That guy gets around the corner, too. Those guys are perfect for those little read option kind of plays they do at the Navy.
He's got a good arm, too. I mean,
he did.
Very well.
He threw it like crazy because the first part of the game they came out throwing to Moss, and then it's almost like, all right, guys, here's the game plan today. Phase A, we're going to go to Moss in the first quarter. And then quarter 2, we're going a different direction.
They loosened things up right off the bat, and they weren't little short throws to Moss. He was going downfield.
He sure was. That made it even more interesting because he's kind of coming in like as a tight end, but he's tight end like a wide receiver. He's like
flexing him out in the slot.
He's kind of like an Olsen kind of guy, like Greg Olsen type guy.
Very much so.
How about the girls' coach of the year in Guilford County? Who do we go with there? Is there a tie, or do we have a single winner here for the girls' coach of the year in Guilford County?
I think, to me, because of the way she developed her team during the course of the season, I would probably give the edge to Kim Furlow over Darlene Joyner. Another coach who always does a great job, who we haven't talked about much, is John Sheeran and Andrews.
Sure.
Another
because we were talking about champions earlier. We always tend to forget his championship team too, because John does just an outstanding job.
They're good every year.
Yeah, and they'll be good again next year.
You lose a little sight of them because their conference is not that strong, but they're always a factor in the playoffs. Anybody who wants to win 2A girls has to go through Andrews at some point.
And he had that little sickness epidemic break out. His game was late a day, I guess, against North Pitt, but went out Sterling, they beat them.
Yeah, I mean, they could very easily have been your state champions in 2A. That's just a very good program, well coached. The ladies from there get to college. They've got their academics in order. He does a great job.
How about the boys' coach of the year?
Boy, I think that one would be the toughest for me. I think I might give a slight edge to Lee Revis over Guy Shavers, but they both did a great job. And on the private school side, I think Freddie Johnson always does a good job. I mean, they were overlooked going into the season. Everybody was talking about High Point Christian and Wesleyan because of the influx of talent at both schools. And what does Freddie do? He goes out and wins another conference championship, gets to the semifinals with I forget whether it was a 1 or 2 point loss to High Point Christian. He just keeps doing it, and nothing changes there, and they have everybody back Greensboro Day.
Yeah, that team, you can already go ahead and pencil those guys in for some potential state championship run against Providence again, because I'm sure Providence got a bunch of young guys.
They've
back
got
too.
two very good guards, but pretty much their whole front court is gone. I would think that Greensboro Day would have to be, they and Raleigh Ravenscroft very strong, would be the prohibitive favorites in private school 3A.
I tell you, girls and boys both, Providence Day, they just took over this year.
Great program and good coaches, and there's a lot of talent in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County, and on the private school side, that's where it's gravitating right now.
Yeah, and like you say, there could be a difference at Providence again. They may pick up some players for next year's team before it goes.
Yeah.
What about back to that boys deal? It seems like at one time maybe Guy Shavers was way ahead.
Yeah.
By the time you turn around into the year, here comes Lee Revis. He's catching up with him.
They were two very evenly matched basketball teams during the course of the season. Wild swings of momentum in their games. Just really good basketball players and good athletes on both of those teams. I mean, that one, we don't, News and Record, we don't pick a coach of the year. I would have a very, very difficult time picking between those two guys this year because they both did a great job, and they both have established programs where the players change, but they're going to be strong every year. You know what you're going to see from those teams. They're going to be well coached. They're going to be disciplined. The kids are going to play hard. That's fun to watch.
The interesting thing, too, is you kind of break that thing down. When Northwest beats Southwest, once you beat a team, you realize you can beat them again as well. You get that first win.
Well, and that game was just such a wild swing. I believe I was at that game. I believe Southwest was up 30-9 at one point, and then the third quarter, Northwest came out and completely turned it around. Reggie Davis hit a couple of big threes early in the quarter, had a putback dunk.
And once he got involved, he's got to get involved in the activity, no doubt about it.
Yeah, the Southwest folks, their coaches after the game said when he comes to play like that every night, that's a team that can win a state championship.
Who's the girls' player of the year?
I think for sheer impact and taking over games, for me it was Alyssa Kinane. 20 points, 14 rebounds, 8 blocks in a state championship game, and every team that they played had to game plan against her, the coach had to remind the guards and everyone who went inside that if you're going inside on her, you've got to try to get into her body and take it strong because she'll block a shot, or you have to get in there, draw her, and dish. She changes everything, and if she gets the ball in the paint with position on offense, she scores or gets fouled, and she's a great free throw shooter.
Give us those numbers again.
State championship game, 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 blocks. I voted for her as the player of the game, even though they lost by 3, because I thought what she did in that game far outshone any of the Freedom players individually. Freedom won the game, great team, well coached, but for a sophomore to go into a state championship game and play like that.
Yeah, it's kind of scary thinking about the fact that she keeps getting better and better. It's going to really be something crazy.
She is on an AAU team with Bria Gibbs from Northwest, Kayla King from Northwest.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of who else is on that team. There are like 5 or 6 players who are potentially
she'll get her
Division I
chances.
players.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What about the boys' player of the year?
Well, News and Record, we're going to do private and public, but without leaking any, I don't think I want to tell you exactly who, but I'll give you some names.
Yeah.
On the public school side, that one is probably easy to figure out. High Point Christian's Idris Bam Adebayo, one of the top players in the country. He's a finalist for just about every national award, playing the Jordan Brand Classic, the McDonald's All-American Game, the Nike Hoop Summit. 6'10", 260, going to Kentucky, unlimited potential, probably the strongest low-post player in the country. That one was kind of easy on the boys.
The tough question might be, who's going to be the new head coach at High Point Christian? Or anything about that?
No. I think that they're kind of reviewing the direction that they want to go in with that program. They've brought in a lot of players from outside over the last few years. Whether that's going to continue or not, I think that's a decision they're trying to make. Corey Gassell, the AD there, does a great job, and I think it's just a matter of the administration and Corey deciding what direction they want to take that in. But I think he was the clear-cut private schools player of the year. When you get into the public schools, it gets a little bit more interesting. You've got to talk about Trey Turner at Northwest Guilford. You've got to talk about Cameron Langley, and maybe even Kamen Mitchell from Southwest. You got to talk about Hendon Hooker from Dudley.
Raymond Pratt.
You've got a couple of Aaron Wiggins had a nice year for Grimsley. You got two really good players at Northern Guilford. Jack Emmerich was a really tough low post player. Andy Pack put up great numbers for them. You know, there's a lot of guys there. I think that's a lot less clear cut, and I'm not ready to quite go out on a limb.
You could almost take a little vote, throw it out at the site or whatever. You're going to put Cameron Langley versus Trey Turner versus Raymond Pratt. You could take those top three guys
Raymond
there.
Pratt is another name I didn't mention. Who you know, he's a big reason why Smith goes and wins the Metro 4A tournament. They had a tough quick out in the States, but you know, he's a scorer. He is a pure scorer, and A&T will give him a chance to do more of that next year.
Going to be interesting down the stretch. What's the play of the year you won't forget, or maybe a night of the year, maybe a play of the year you remember, a big play, or one night that maybe stands out in your mind?
Well, play, I think, not from a positive standpoint, but the ending of that Northwest Guilford game. They're up 2 on Millbrook with about 2 seconds to go. Foul called on Northwest. Lady for Millbrook makes the first free throw, misses the second off the front rim. Caroms out in traffic to a Millbrook player, just puts it up and banks it in as the game ends. You know, heartbreaking, devastating for Northwest Guilford, but that was by far the most dramatic play of the year. Game or moment of the year. To me, the wild comeback by Northwest in that game at Southwest, when Southwest was still unbeaten, to hand them their first loss that third quarter, and just the momentum swings in that game was just a show. On the private school side, Greensboro Days, 2 regular season games with High Point Christian were epic. 2 two-point games, one that Greensboro Day wins the High Point Christian home game at Guilford College. The second one goes to overtime, is a 2-point win for High Point Christian at Greensboro Day. Those games were seeing that many future Division I basketball players on the floor at one time playing in a game with that kind of defensive intensity was a joy to watch for me.
Now, you were at the the High Point Christian Academy state championship game too, right?
Yes, sir.
And down in Raleigh.
Yeah.
What did you get around the team at the end of that game? Able to be around the team then? What the mood, attitude was like around that bench after that game when they lost like that?
Tremendous disappointment. Bam Adebayo got in foul trouble, picked up 2 fouls in the first minute and a half, and had to sit for quite a while. They just struggled. That Charlotte Providence Day team was very good. They've got a power forward, Grant Williams, who's going to Tennessee. 2 very, very good young sophomore guards, Devon Dotson, who's being recruited by Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, pretty much everybody you would think would be after a player of that caliber. Plus Trey Wirtz, who's the son of Charlotte Observer's high school's reporter Langston Wirtz, who was the MVP of that state championship game with 25 points. When you look at him, other than the fact that he's 6'3", he doesn't physically wow you, not particularly muscular or blazing fast, but the kid is just a tremendously smart basketball player. And
in what year is he?
Sophomore.
He's got a good future.
I mean,
then, yeah.
he's got a tremendously bright future too. They came out and just executed their offense, took High Point Christian apart early in the game with Adebayo out, and High Point Christian made a little bit of a run when they brought Jalen Seegers off the bench, and he started hitting the offensive boards, and Ben Robertson did a great job for them attacking the basket. That was what they weren't doing. They weren't attacking the basket, and I think the disappointment of coming up short after so much was expected of them, I think, was pretty tough to deal with for those kids.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jalen Seegers in the new coaching situation at High Point Christian. If he stays there, if he moves on to somewhere else, because
he can't move to another public school.
Yeah, he had to go to another class since he's already reclassed. Yeah,
right?
either that, or I guess he could go on to college if he had the connection, but the connections haven't been completely established yet.
Yeah, I think he'll be back there. The only other place I could see him maybe going might be a Wesleyan or maybe a boarding private school somewhere that takes reclassified students. He's a really great kid, fun to watch. He's always got a smile on his face, and he is one of the best offensive rebounders I've ever seen at the high school level. He's just a machine going to the offensive boards. I hope he finds the right fit for him at the college level, because he could be a fun player to watch at that level.
I think my play of the year would be this crazy play in the Smith girls game. They passed them inbounds to the Smith player, and they're going maybe left or right, and the basket's on the other end of the court. Mm-hmm. She got the inbounds pass, took the ball, shot it in the wrong basket, and scored. You don't see that often. Just a crazy play. Once in a blue moon, you see it.
Yeah.
How about a shout out to somebody along the way you ran into this year, made it a better day, made it a better season? Any kind of shout outs? One big shout out down the road here? You've seen a lot of people.
There are so many great people involved in high school sports. I've said this to you before, I think on your show here and in other places, that 99% of the time I consider myself very lucky to do what I do. There's always a few people who aren't happy with things that we've said or written, but you see kids at their best, you see coaches at their best, you see a lot of people at their best. A lot of places where the hospitality is just fantastic. There's just a lot of good people in basketball in Guilford County, Rockingham County, this area. It's just, if I were to name one, I'd be leaving off 100 others.
One that came to mind for me is kind of what we both know well would be John Swihart. Big shout out to John down at Southeast,
Yes.
because of all the ones we run into, John is probably as loyal and dedicated to the Southeast
unofficial
cause.
sports information director
Yeah,
for the Falcons,
exactly.
and does a great job.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You know, at a football game, he's always the first person to greet you in the press box, make you feel welcome, get you your rosters, and do anything he can to make your experience better. He's a fantastic ambassador, not just for the athletics program at Southeast Guilford, but for the whole school and the community. Just a great guy.
And one of the guys, too, he's doing all those things, plus he knows what he's doing. Sometimes you might see a guy at the school who wants to help, wants to be, but not necessarily able to pull those things off. And John can pull
He
them
does
off.
a better job than some of the small college people do.
That's a good point.
With a full-time job, yeah.
Cool, good point. Well, Joe, I guess that's it. We can just about let you grab your meal either here to go and let you stick a fork in that and a fork in this. You got a little bit more to do with the paper as far as your all-area teams and players of the year, that type
Yes,
thing.
sir. They will be appearing the next week or so. Haven't nailed down the exact dates yet because of everything that's going on with NCAA basketball. We want to give those teams appropriate play and showcase those great kids.
Excellent work.
You too, Andy. Always appreciate it.
See you at the next baseball game, wherever it's going to be.
Good deal, sir. Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Joe Sirera with us, news and record for Shan'e Rib Shack, Basketball in Focus. Going to change a gear to get Josh Williams. The next Josh is going to join us and talk about the upcoming events he has planned. And we've got Northern Guilford women coming in later tonight. Good to hear from Joe as always. Outstanding job by Joe Sirera with the news and record. And Josh Williams is in next. It's going to get Josh back in the house and give Josh a chance to promote some Jeunesse work coming up. What's Jeunesse got planned, Josh? I know you got some combines coming up.
I do. So we have a string of them coming up in May that we're planning out right now. We have a few schools in the area who's going to bring us out. We're going to take up one day of practice, and we're going to take a few guys through a workout. You know, we're going to try to find some